On today's ADOTAT Show, we've got Mark Coleman, the guy who sold DoubleClick to Google and now spends his days turning startups into gold. Think you've got what it takes to survive the startup grind? Mark's here to tell you what you're probably doing wrong. And trust me, you'll want to listen. Stick around because this one's going to get real.
Deserve to win when it matters most. Facing multi-billion-dollar bet the company litigation? No problem. That's why we're here. Troutman Amin, LLP is a true legal powerhouse.
Welcome back to the ADOTAT Show. I am your host, Pesach Lattin. Today we have Mark Coleman, the venture capitalist and startup whisperer. As co-founder of Tambora Ventures, he turns fledgling ideas into billion-dollar successes. With powerhouse background at Google and a knack for spotting potential, Mark also advises Curve Interactive on groundbreaking AI tech. If you want the inside scoop on surviving the wild world of startups, you're in the right place. Let's dive in with Mark Coleman. First of all, Mark, how are you doing? And no press release, please.
All doing well. Family's fine. I'm feeling healthy. No complaints. Passion for life and the innovation that I support. Thank you for asking.
So you've gone from the sweaty palmed, ramen for dinner founder life to the more relaxed investor vibe, sipping artisanal coffee while watching others do the panic dance. What's the most unexpectedly satisfying part of this transition? And I won't tolerate hearing helping others routine. We're both too jaded for that.
Please. You know, look, we all have careers and a path that we follow and a journey that we like to stay very close to. But then every now and then the light, the awakening is given of how we give back to the community that supported our careers that we do. So I was blessed to be in the world of innovation around really smart people, and I've been blessed to be able to go forward and support startups, innovation, and entrepreneurs who are following their dreams.
So when you see a founder running headfirst into a brick wall that you once hit, do you swoop in like a superhero, or do you let them get the full crash and burn experience?
Please. You know, one commitment I make is I don't want to really own the car that they're driving. So we try to monitor what they're doing very closely, but we don't wait for an accident to happen to put a stoplight at that corner. We try to help them as early in the process as possible, but it's part of our tracking we do, the due diligence we find, and the support that we give companies today. But we just don't roll the die and sit back and pray and hope. We leave that for synagogue.
Right, there's no part of you that wants to hand them a helmet and say you're going to need this?
No, not even close. Although I sit on a number of boards humbly, and I've been asked to take over the reins often, but it's not something that I didn't sign up to do.
How often do you resist the urge to say, relax, kid, this is just a normal Tuesday for me?
I would say every waking moment. You know, part of the DNA of a founder is to make sure that they're really focused and they're grounded and they really have their priorities set. Every now and then, things hit a little brick wall and we try to get them back on track. But my world isn't really to swoop down and save and rescue. I'm a proactive individual. We like to get ahead of the curve.
So now that you're an investor, what's one thing you see founders obsess over that makes you want to roll your eyes and tell them to focus on the real issue? For example, is it the obsession with branding before they even have a working product?
Please. You know, we sit down, we discuss their positioning, the messaging, the branding of the company, and I bring it down to basic marketing 101. Is there a void, a demand? Is there a price that people are willing to pay for? But more importantly, I try to get them focused on the prize. You know, they didn't go in this to be a banker, to be raising money. They came in to be a builder for their innovation. So we try to get them focused to the funding of it right away, but it's all about the innovation, taking it to market, following their KPI in the journey.
Settle for dusty old-school TV ads when you could be turning heads with Origin. Imagine zero-code solutions that make setting up your CTV campaigns faster than a double espresso shot. Origin brings dynamic, captivating ads in the living room and outside the home. With ad formats designed to grab eyeballs and stop thumbs from scrolling, Origin isn't just about reach, it's about results. Like a jaw-dropping 883% lift in viewer attention. Don't just get noticed, get remembered. Visit originmedia.tv and start your ad revolution today.
So how many times do you have to tell them that they don't need a pong table, but they need to focus on their margins?
Not that often. Really not that often. We're very transparent. I can talk about my philosophy of my portfolios and my cohorts, but I try to treat my businesses like I treat my family, no different. Very transparent. We communicate. We just try to be upfront, and we hit an issue, we address it. We have learnings from it. But it's not a revenue-driven companies that I go for. It's really about the journey, where they are, where they want to take us in the marketplace.
So looking back at your founder days, what is one mistake that you made that you can laugh at, but at the time felt like the end of the world?
Well, there are many, but when we make mistakes, the idea is to get a learning from it too. But it's, I go back to when we sold DoubleClick to Google, and my quickest learning is I found out Google wasn't in the sales organization. And here I was, and, reporting to Tim Armstrong and telling me that here's your group, and there was a couple of hundred of them, and every day they sat in front of the terminal. So the mistake that I found in other operation is about sales, is about relationships, is about engaging, about learning from your customers. So that was my learning of sales. It was really about client facing and building relationships.
So how do you balance the temptation to micromanage founders with the need to let them figure out things on their own, even if it's really painful to watch?
Well, I am transparent. I don't wait for them to dig a deep hole that we can't get out of. I try to stay in real time. I try not to get the cart in front of the horse as often as I can. And we deal with real issues in real time, like I mentioned. So, it's not a daily phone call, but I'm over-communicated. At the end of the day, I follow the sun. I'm on with Israel at the crack of dawn, and I end my day in the West Coast here in the States. So it's just being available and accessible, and just trying to give them the proper guidance that they need at the issues that they're addressing.
So you've said before that you treat your LPs and board members like family, which sounds both comforting and frankly mildly terrifying. Are we talking about the kind of family where everyone hugs at Thanksgiving, or the type where someone is always 2 seconds away from a passive-aggressive meltdown?
That's a great question. I treat a family, everyone has their own DNA, and we dress it appropriately. There's no standard, there's no template, there's no book of raising a family, nor there is a book of how to really run a business. But the reason I mention a family is just being able to address issues with everybody at the real time, and not feel that there's to be threatened by any other variable out there. But I do treat my venture fund like a family offices. Each company cohort portfolio complements each other, not competition. We have offsites quite often. We get to meet everybody. I can talk about that a little bit, but I try to bring everybody in so they don't have their guard up. And we're just really talking about best practices. And some days our companies have different products, features, and offering, but they're selling to the same customer. I'm not a broker. We don't monetize internally, but we're all grown-ups. We figure it out how to work together.
So do you consider yourself the dad giving out wisdom, or the uncle who shows up last minute with the lottery ticket?
I'm the dad. I'm not that crazy uncle at the table. I try to be able to help them as often as I can, but on a respectful way. I don't believe in a dictatorship. We have healthy conversations, healthy debates. And like I mentioned earlier, I learn every day. I learn from my founders probably as much as they learn from me. So it's a really strong relationship. And sometimes it's not just the founders, though, Pesach. I surround myself with really smart people. If I'm the smartest one in the room, I look for another room. But it's a lot of the advisors, the board members, the people financially that support them, as well as their customers, their partners, their clients. So I really get close with them. I even go on sales calls in the trenches with junior people to hear the messaging that goes on. But the more I know, the better they do.
Should they ever come to you with advice for, like, what should I name my dog, or do I need a prenup?
I always have a limitation. It's when my kids tell me, "Look, we love that you give advice. That doesn't mean we have to take it." I'm an ear and an eye and a voice, but I don't run the company. I don't have the keys to the office. I don't sign payroll. So it's really a healthy conversation, a healthy debate, and then we make real strategic, tactical decisions often.
Do you ever have to play peacekeeper between two board members who are an email away from a flame war?
Sadly so. Look, I'm fairly new to the industry. I'm only doing it several years. I'm really like my founders, and I'm an entrepreneur. But I found that the venture world is a broken sector. Sadly, a lot of bad actors, both sides, both as investors who don't do their due diligence, as well as in these entrepreneurs who are just painting a different visible experience of what they're doing. So I'm really a hands-on operator. So I know that when I'm involved in a company, my colleagues, my network are pretty excited that I threw my hat in the ring. Humbly.
So how do you handle the tough conversations when things go sideways? Do you sugarcoat it or lay it out like, this is how it is done, just deal with it?
Well, I don't take the extreme of the latter of the two. I think it's a combination of both, making more honey than the stinger, but really being tactical, having the healthy debate of why. It's not just this is the reason, but really discuss it, and then we figure out the solution together. It's almost like a magician. They know the card already, what you want to pull out. It's really how you do your positioning with your board members and your founders and your team.
So you're also a huge supporter of Israeli innovation, and frankly, that ecosystem is a goldmine of startups. But how do you sift through all the noise to find the ones that are actually worth mentoring?
Again, great question there. Thank you, Pesach. So I've been blessed. I sit on a number of boards and accelerators, Israeli companies, a lot of the VCs who they know I travel quite a bit to Tel Aviv. So I'm exposed through my colleagues. It took years to develop the brand. I work with the different colleagues and logos and from Google and down the road down to other VCs as well. But I get exposure, a lot of assets. And I'm not a FOMO guy, but I kiss a lot of frogs every day. And the more I know and I get to see, the better my decisions are.
How much do you think is the idea or the person behind it?
Well, it starts with the people right away. And the idea, I have to break it down to void and demand and see where the supply is and the competition. And not just a product. I invest in companies, and I can discuss that in different sectors that really excite me as well excites the person running the company.
So on the flip side, what is the magic ingredient that makes you think this founder's got it? Is it the passion, the market, or something else?
It's definitely a combination of it, but it starts with passion. And it also starts with the idea where the void is in the marketplace that I mentioned. But it's really the founders. Founders have a really unique DNA, more so than people could imagine. It's not just flipping the brim of the hat and taking on another role. They have a good balance of family and work. They get work done 24/7. They take responsibility, and they're transparent. And I can go on about their DNA, but I'm a real people person. I start with that first and foremost. And the reason for Israel, I got to confess, I'll be a little transparent. My wife is a first-generation Holocaust survivor. I got a lot of my family values from her parents, may they rest in peace, and mine as well. But it's just different Americanization. But I take a lot of that family values about sacrifice into what we need to do to get something done. But I take a lot of that through everything I do. I'm married to my best friend for over 45 years, and we got 3 kids all grown up. I'm walking on water with 8 grandchildren. I'm on a different chapter of what I'm doing. I appreciate life. I don't own an alarm clock. But when you're passionate about something, and I find people like myself that are passionate about what they're doing, it's a win-win. And people ask me, why am I still working? And I don't even call it work, what we do. So
what was the biggest sacrifice you made?
One was really traveling. At the end of my chapter, I really want to spend a little more time with my wife, but I had to rebuild my brand. Tambora Venture, I had to really credit myself and what I was doing. Matter of fact, my hypothesis is really, I don't charge a management fee for my LPs. I take a real big ownership for my board members, my LPs, etc. And I could talk about the network that I get involved with. It's been a healthy experience for me. But like anything, when you're passionate about something, it's not really work.
So why don't you charge management fees? This seems new and innovative.
I took a commitment when I was doing this. I didn't see the value of taking private money and keeping it for myself. I went in this to help innovation, and here I'm raising money, and I'm going to be keeping some of it for myself and not giving it to innovation. I thought the big bet was like my vision of why, and let's all make money together. It's not as much ownership of equity we met, but I wanted people to believe in my vision. I've been blessed. I'm now on my 3rd fund. and some serious partners that really want to join what we do. But it's a just different chapter for me, and I say in a humble way. I don't chase money. I know it follows me at the end of the day, but it's really what doesn't drive me. It's really, I say in a humble way, Pesach.
So going back to the Israeli ecosystem, when you mentor the founders, what is the most common mistake you see them making that is unique to Israeli founders? I mean, let's be honest. The startup culture in Israel is very intense.
It's too intense.
Right.
We could talk about
people are overconfident.
So what happens is it's a different culture. Selling in your backyard in Tel Aviv is in the size of New Jersey is great, and it's an easy win. But I believe in going global and taking it out to the States. And it's a different culture in the States. It's a different relationship building, more trust, and then just introducing them to the appropriate players. I always say, for all the meetings you want to have, you have a nickel for every meeting and just have a bucket full of change, but no money. So I really just follow a KPI of what we're trying to accomplish and move the needle in that direction. And then see what we need after we run out of gas and fill up the car with gas again, and then get to the next KPI. But I'm more strategic than revenue. But it's the culture in Israel, which is different outside of Israel. And the temperature is a little bit lukewarm, to say the least, of the temperature today. So I'm just trying to keep everyone just on the right frame of mind.
So how do you balance your personal attachment to want to help Israeli startups with the cold, hard investor reality of needing to make money?
I'm blessed. I'm married to a retired school teacher, so we don't feel that pressure on that. But all kidding aside,
my wife's in education also.
But all kidding aside, again, it's really the chapter I'm up to. I'm a Queens boy married to a Brooklyn girl. I've been very blessed, and not just in my health and my family, but I've been blessed in my career as well. So I'm a karma guy. I pay things forward. I know this sounds pretty trite, and but it's really what got me to who I am today, and I haven't changed it. It's been working. So it ain't broke. I'm not going to fix it.
Have you ever backed a startup that you just thought was good for the ecosystem, even though you didn't think the financials were perfect?
Yeah, there are a lot of learnings I get. You remind me of a story that in Brooklyn, Dumbo, I bought a research company. And the margins are great, and the team was awesome. But my learnings from it was I thought it was taking too long to get the work out the door. And my takeaway from that was that it's a high standard sector. And the zeros and ones are very important. And it's interesting. It's not just putting lipstick and getting it out the door. My learnings were is that when you get involved in a team, their passion and their high standards is really what gets the company to the next level. So my learning was from that, it was listening to the team, not just the founders of running the companies.
So looking ahead, what sectors or industries in Israeli innovation do you think are about to blow up, and how are you positioning yourself to be part of that?
Well, I'm, again, fortunate to be from the digital world, so I'm highly educated, and the work relationships around AI and deep minds, et cetera, and so on. So I'm very, in the adtech platforms, we try to help companies get to the next level where it's more scalable, more efficient, what they need to do. And then really what slows us down a little bit is when the companies themselves are just frustrated where their product are taking it to market or not really skewed to where the demand is, where they're located yet.
But changing topics to the DoubleClick to Google deal, that's the type of exit most founders dream of but rarely achieve. What was the biggest challenge you faced during that process, and how did it change the way you think about scaling businesses?
Wow, great question. So again, I'm a cog in a wheel, one of many, but part of the C-suite team, making decisions in real time. We were public, went private, we took a PE firm. So we were making real-time decisions, what we needed to do. But to answer that question, it reminds me of a story that we were blessed to have two people like Google and Microsoft interested to buy us at the time. And so we had to make real-time decisions what to do. We took in a PE firm, we consolidated different divisions, and we were able to bring in more revenue because at that point we were able to just operate a little different. But it was just having a product in the right time for the marketplace. It opened up a lot of doors for a lot of different exits in our space. And a lot of my colleagues were pretty happy about the DoubleClick sale, as well as what happened afterwards or in the industry itself. But you never know.
Right. Was there any point in the middle of the deal you thought, crap, what am I doing? Do you think like it might just blow up on you?
No. It's because you only know what you know, and you don't have a crystal ball. So you just try to bring in that smart people again, and try to be strategic of what you need to do. But when you have a company like Google that ends up buying you, you lose control. And I was positive they were going to sunset the technology. They really bought our company for a lot of the relationship stuff. We had the tier one.
You didn't think they were going to keep like DFP?
No, I thought it was. I shot that lasted for over 10 years. But they made it was a great transition that we did. DoubleClick into the Google platform. Great people, smart people. I wouldn't change one thing, one day over the experience I've had over the several years at Google.
So how did the culture differentiate?
Well, the problem is that they're a product company, not a sales organization. When we ran DoubleClick, we ran it pretty much through sales, and then we built the product. At Google, it was pretty much everything was template, and nothing was redlined. So and you were the elephant in the room with Google. But it was day one. It was an awakening, and sat with people to ask them to leave their ego at the door, and then really just address real issues in real time and get to know our customers and grow. I was fortunate to work with different groups and acquisitions, and got to meet some good partners and et cetera and so on, and got to see the world with Google. But I wouldn't change one thing with them. They're really a smart organization. To this date, I even run with a couple of my colleagues, the Zooglers, which are ex-Google people. We try to put them in the marketplace. And then I work with a lot of the mother company over with Google and their venture funds and their other innovation arms that they do.
What's one thing you wish you were told about Google before you went into it?
It was interesting. So here we sell the company, and we hit a recession in 2006, and then I had to let go about 30% of my team, and we were so excited to be there. So it was very frustrating to me. They called me in, and we had to track them and let down about 30%. I was even said to my wife that day, they had me just do all the metrics and let people go, but I'm sure they're going to call me in tomorrow and let me go the next day. So you never know. With a big corporation like that, at the end of the day, there were about 3-5 people that make day-to-day decisions, and everyone else is independent, in their own world, what they do. All good.
Do you ever wonder what DoubleClick would look like today if it hadn't been sold?
It'd be bigger. There was other options for acquisitions and grow it more of a media company back again, more into where we see a lot of the companies are today. But it was one of the best sales with a great company for an exit. I don't think I would ever change it again. Not that I can make that decision solely, but I think as a company, they made a great decision with a great opportunity with Google.
So there's a lot of talk about the breakup of Google, obviously. Do you think that DoubleClick might make its way back?
Never.
No?
Never. You know what is all these, I always call it the DoubleClick mafia, but a lot of the senior leaderships were all implanted everywhere else and had a great career and different exits. I don't know if they can get the band back together again. Sometimes things aren't meant to be. But the world is the baton for someone else to run with it. So,
how do you see the breakup if it happens?
I don't see it happening personally. So I don't go down that hypothetical. But someone will take a division here, a division there, and won't even make a dent in what they're doing.
So when you're advising companies, how do you strike the right balance between high-level strategic thinking and just getting things done? There's always that tension between the big picture and the nitty-gritty. How do you know when to pivot versus staying the course?
That's a gray area. I never like to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I always like to keep the staple of what's keeping the oxygen or the lights on for the company. But I always believe we could, walk and chew gum. So we always experiment a little bit with the core business and with maybe some extra revenue to experiment. But you have to have a KPI, and you have to put some metrics against it and not make gut calls all the time. So often we pull the trigger when things aren't working. Sometimes it's the learnings from that we end up doing something else. Look, I always believe that everything we do takes us down the path, and we have to make, calculated decisions when we get to the fork in the road. But that's in real time. I would never go by a playbook and just follow page by page. It's not the real world.
How many times do you see founders fall into the analysis paralysis trap, thinking too much and doing way too little?
Yeah, that's a big problem. They overthink it. And you probably heard me say, just don't get too far ahead of it a little bit. So I really stay in real time. I stay pretty much 90 days and 6 months. Right. And we follow that roadmap as close as can be. And I try to tell them, because I wear both hats as an entrepreneur, to listen sometimes to board members with a deaf ear every now and then. I don't invest in investors, I invest in founders. And different board members have different agendas than the companies. I have to always make sure that the founder's vision is being adhered to. We'll make little caveats every now and then, but, board members, investors have a different agenda. So I'm always trying to pull the reins back a little bit of the balancing act of that.
On the flip side, what's the risk of jumping into action too quickly?
It's really a loss of money, taking good money into bad. When we have excess of money, we have, it's not a priority. It's an and, not an or. So it's just each situation has their own. But I am a risk taker to learn. I believe in dipping toes in before jumping in both feet. But once we evaluate, because I'm a data guy, we bring the smart people back in the room, and then we see that there is something there. And then we come up with the deliverables against it.
How often do you feel like the parents saying, look both ways before you cross into trap it, and they still sprint right into the highway?
Until they're no different. But every now and then I get some entrepreneurs that have been there. It doesn't mean their track record, but they have a little experience. Look, when I support companies, I don't go too early. I go through a little revenue and a little POC, proof of concept, and I see who they're surrounded by in terms of customer clients and logos, and to see where I could really move the needle for them. Look, the hard part of what I do is saying no too often. I wish I could say yes all day long, because there's a lot of good, smart people out there.
When you know a pivot is necessary, how do you convince a founder to change direction when they're too emotionally invested in the original plan? Is it like trying to say that someone's baby is ugly?
Not as. Sometimes I have to put ink to paper and show them in terms of real math of what we're trying to accomplish. Sometimes they're always thinking exit versus, day to day. Right. And once I get them to keep their eye on the prize of why they went in to be a builder and what we're trying to accomplish. Look, I say this every day, where you start and where you finish is two different things. Walk into Amazon and tell me if you can find a book anywhere nearby. So my point is that it's great to start, have a core MVP, have a hook or a niche, but then, let's figure out where the legs on of this company is, not just a product, not just a service, not just a feature. And then try to build a real company from that with them.
What's the tipping point when you know a pivot is absolutely necessary, though?
It usually comes to the leadership when the team itself is just not implementing and executing, where I know the IP is good and the core MVP and the adtech and et cetera and so on. They're just chasing the wrong market. So sadly, we do come in and repackage companies when we find leadership is taking it wrong. It's not an easy board meeting, especially when they dilute themselves so much. I try to protect my founders so they're not just employees of their own company. But when that point comes when they are just employees of their own company, it's a different journey for them.
Let's get a little personal. You've been around the block, sold companies, mentored startups, and dodged bad actors. But when it comes to life influences, who is your Yoda, the one person who taught you the most, both in business and life? And you can't say your dad unless your dad was actually a Jedi Master.
I could say them all, but this is interesting. So, I was at a college, Madison Avenue guy. Now, I could talk about how I got into digital, but, my first job was a big agency, and I was very fortunate when the president of the big ad agency took a liking to me. And he
Which agency?
Greenstone and Rabaska. It was a shop outside of New York, but it was a team of about 100 people. It was awesome. But so he puts my desk next to his desk. He's the president. back then. Couldn't believe it.
Right.
And, here I'm a young kid. I'm 26, 27. Didn't know, and I took a little offense of it. But he says, Mark, I want you to learn from me what the business is really about. He saw something in me. It was really an interesting thing. And my takeaway was about the importance of mentorship from the right person and really learning in the trenches and the messages and understanding how to manage up and manage down. But I learned so much at a young age that I took with me wherever I went. From there, it was the boost of my career in the agency world. But it was really being mentored by the right person. I always want my founders to be mentored by the right person. Doesn't mean me, but the appropriate person to help them.
If you were stuck on a desert island, could bring 5 people with you, who's making the cut, and you can't bring your entire board?
Yeah, it wouldn't be anyone from any of my boards. It would be, family and period. If they wanted to be there or not, I'm sure they'd be, screaming and kicking that I took them to there. But it would be family members, period. Now, the selection of it could be a little bit awkward, so I'll just leave it at family members if that's okay.
If you could have any superpower, not the cheesy ones like flying or invisibility, what would it be, and how would you use it in your daily life? Because let's be real, we all want one.
You're good. Look, the power of healing. I'm all about longevity and health and quality of life. If I had that superpower of putting my hands on somebody and healing them, whatever they have, be it a mental issue or something physical, I'd say amen and thank you Hashem. I mean, period. But life isn't like that, so I deal with it in different ways, to say the least. But
What's one crazy opinion you have about the industry that makes most people do a double take?
I'll tell you something, Pesach, which is interesting. So my first experience, I go into my due diligence, I go into the data rooms, and then what I find in there, holy cow, where, I come back to the other board members. Do you want to call the SEC or the legal team? Or there's a lot of shady things going on in this company. So what I found was that the investor side, they weren't doing their due diligence appropriately because that's when money was free. And I always felt that more of the founders are spending time being bankers for livelihood than actually building out and cutting back on their burn and churn. But it's a broken sector, and there are a lot of, say, like I mentioned, bad actors. So look, I'm not saying I'm the new sheriff in town, but I'm protecting as many people as I can, because without the private sector, there'd be no innovation and no investment. So I bring in a lot of logos in the public sector that will have innovation and investment arms, because it's my trifecta, what I do. But it's not the norm. It's the private sector that really supports what we do in innovation.
So what's one piece of advice you give most often to young founders, and how many times have you had to repeat it before it stuck?
I think what they get a kick out of me is that we talk about family before we jump into anything. And, there's a reason why we want our career and our livelihood. And I'm very unselfish, but, founders should be a little selfish about themselves and take some time off and spend time, because, make all this money or try to build out this big success and have no one to share it with is meaningless. So I try to give them the other side of my value and my family and my takeaway as often as I can. And it's just being transparent. And I'm just trying to get the founders to be balanced and not work 24/7 and figuring it out together.
So is there something you do in your free time that would surprise people, like knitting sweaters for chinchillas?
A couple. I love gardening and landscaping. I do a lot in 3D, which I enjoy quite a bit. I believe that's the next revolution of photography, and et cetera and so on. And a lot of my companies I try to get involved in that I have passion with around my hobbies. I love vinyl. I love music. I love different family gatherings all the time. But, I just enjoy life.
Anything people would be shocked about?
I meet people, and I lost a lot of weight because I'm gluten-free recently. My perception of when people see me is they judge a book by its cover, what I used to look like and what I look like now. So I get a kick out of that. But people are people. I just I get a little surprised that people take where they get their resources from or facts from, and just respect others. So they'll be shocked that I'm very, very focused and listen and have healthy debates.
And our last question is, what was the time in your life when you did the most growing, like serious character development level stuff? I'm not talking about those cheesy, I learned so much in my 20 moments. I mean, when did life really smack you upside the head and force you to level up, whether you liked it or not?
So I got married young 20s, and I've been blessed with my best friend, like I mentioned. So
how long have you guys been married?
It'll be 45 years.
Congrats.
This spring.
That itself is quite an accomplishment.
Please, I'm so impressed by my wife and the world she lives in, what she does. She motivates me more than anyone. But it's just the relationship I have with my children. Look, I support. It's interesting. I don't mean to talk about this, but I support a lot of diversity, women's groups, equality, everything across the board. But I'm just trying to make a difference and give back to everything that I've done that got me to here. But it was really living and learning from my wife and understanding about sacrifice and tradition and being blessed where this journey has taken me, and taking nothing for granted, ever, ever, ever. So it just feel good.
And that's a wrap. Big thanks to Mark Coleman for dropping some serious truth bombs about startups, scaling, and of course how to avoid driving your company into the ground. If you're still hung up on your logo or the color of your ping pong table, maybe hit rewind and pay attention. Real talk. Build something people actually want. And now, a special shout out to our sponsors, Troutman, Amin, and Origin, for keeping this show alive and as irreverent as we like it. Without you, we'd just be talking to ourselves in the dark. Thanks for letting us keep stirring the pot and serving it hot. Catch you next time on the ADOTAT Show. And as always, stay bold, stay curious, and always know more than you did yesterday.
Pull me in, somersault hard, got me upside down, baby. I'm all in, falling apart.